What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you stopping by, spending a few minutes of your time with me today on this beautiful, beautiful day here on planet Earth. Um, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about choice and responsibility. All right? When we're born, we don't really have the ability to make a conscious choice or decision for ourselves, nor are we responsible for much, right? We are all born with the same choice and the same responsibility. But it seems as we grow, we sort of grow into our ability to make decisions, to make our own choices, to become independent and self-sufficient, right? And we grow into responsibilities. As an adult, though, these responsibilities and these choices are like the bane of existence, right? As an adult, if you could free yourself from a lot of the choices that you are forced to make, if you could relinquish all responsibility, even for just a moment as an adult, you would experience freedom, true freedom. But unfortunately, in the modern world, in our modern society, this isn't really possible to relinquish all choice and all personal responsibility, nor would you necessarily want to. But there are studies that show that people are happier, generally speaking, with less choices. They still want options, they still want a choice, but they don't want so many options to pick from. So if you watch shows like on the Food Network kind of thing, like Gordon Ramsay kind of thing, when he comes in and he reinvents these restaurants, he often reinvents the menu as well, and he greatly simplifies the menu to only 5 or 6 gourmet items that are very simple. This makes it easier for the customer to find their new favorite, right? And it makes it easier on the chef, who only now has to concentrate on perfecting these 5 dishes. It makes it easier on the food management and the food supplier, right? And it even increases profits and helps out the economy at a bigger scale as well, because as people are ordering faster, they're finishing their food faster, which means they're leaving the establishment to go spend their money somewhere else faster, making room for the next customer, right? So it's sort of a win-win for everyone. And this increases profits even and especially in this time of reduced occupancy due to COVID-19. It's sort of just a win-win. People are happier with less choices on many different levels, right? And of course, responsibility is a good thing, but responsibility can also be overwhelming. And sometimes one may feel as if they need a break from responsibility. But what if you've taken on choices and assumed responsibilities that are beyond you, right? What if you have been attempting to exert personal power in areas of life that you have absolutely no control over? So you're essentially wasting your time or even working backwards, right? People assume responsibility for things that are beyond themselves all of the time, like the emotional well-being of other people. No matter how bad we would like to help people emotionally, mentally, spiritually, a large portion, and in reality perhaps the entirety of that responsibility, is on each one of us as individuals to develop, to actually learn, and to understand, to open up to new possibilities. This is on each of us as an individual. I couldn't help you if I wanted to, if your mind was made up for something else, right? And my version of help may not be right for you, per se, right? So I am not obligated to respond to any question. I'm not obligated to speak at all to anyone. And if I exercise this idea. Like if someone asks me a question that I'm just not interested in answering and I just don't even acknowledge the question, this person may become offended. But is that my responsibility? No. But a lot of the times, if I'm assuming responsibility for their emotional well-being, or if I'm dependent on the way they respond to me, the way they interact with me for my own personal happiness, then I will be forced to generate a response, oftentimes with a smile and an air of positivity, even though I may not be genuinely feeling that, right? I may have to play it off. I may have to talk in a certain way because of some sort of strange moral obligation, right? Like if I were to be nice to everyone, if I was to help everyone that I came in contact with, it would be much more likely that they would help me. But they could only help me with external things. They cannot supply me with anything internal. They cannot supply me with happiness or clarity of mind or emotional well-being, right? They can only help me with external things. So I can only rely on external things for external things. But for internal things, I must rely on internal things. I must assume full responsibility for this and relinquish my sense of responsibility to others in this way, right? Because this forms a dependency or a codependency and works against any form of independence or self-sufficiency on the level of emotions and thoughts and a general sense of well-being or happiness, right? Acceptance, even. You understand what I'm saying? Think of the mind like a computer, in the sense that there is this internal storage capacity, and you could fill this storage to capacity with whatever content you desire, and it may not affect the performance of the machine. But if you had simultaneously opened several different applications or programs, they were all running at the same time, but you were primarily working in one of those, you may experience some performance issues because the power of the machine is spread so thinly across the board. Some of these programs are running in the background of the machine. You may not even be aware that the computer has these programs or these applications open and operating, right? So if you were made aware of it, if you went into like the task manager and you could observe that these programs were active, but you weren't actually using them, so they're just sucking away vital energy or power from the computer, you can shut those down and free open all of this energy to go into your seamless experience with whatever you're working on in the current moment. Or if you thought about it a different way, if you were connected to the Wi-Fi from your computer and you're playing video games, right? And you're the only one connected, you should experience no connection issues. There should be no lag in your gameplay experience, right? But if there are several different devices within your home that are all connected to the Wi-Fi at the same time, and they're each doing their own thing, downloading, uploading, streaming, or gaming, then you may experience some lag in your internet connection. So if you were to go around and shut down these other devices and the processes that they have going on, you would experience a decrease in this lag and an increase in the seamlessness of your connection and gaming experience, your overall experience, right? And so if you thought about the mind like this, when we assume responsibility over things that we actually have no power over, like the emotional well-being of others, right, then we're sort of externalizing this power. It's flowing outward and sort of not being wasted, but it's not being utilized to its fullest potential, right? And so a person can begin to feel drained because of this in various aspects of life, right? It's a strange idea to think about, but even with, if you took some extreme examples of responsibility and choice, because responsibility is always a choice, but very oftentimes people complain about their responsibilities as if their responsibilities were obligations. But there is a difference between these two things. Oftentimes an obligation is something like you have a legal obligation, whether it be to your child, to something that has to do with your business, a business deal. This is sort of an obligation. A moral obligation is something different. This is like, if I am good to everyone else will be good to me. This is like a moral obligation. An obligation is you have to do something in order to receive certain benefits. That's what an obligation is. A responsibility is almost like a choice to willingly suffer. You see? But you don't have to take responsibility for anything, not even your own children. And the evidence for this is clear, because we have an entire system that is built to foster children, right? It may be natural for a lot of people to feel this responsibility to their own biological offspring, but it's not natural to everyone. A lot of people, for various reasons, opt for things like adoption. And there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing bad in doing this, right? If this responsibility, this sense of responsibility for the child does not naturally arise, it probably would be best if that child was surrendered to people who do have that, for not just their own offspring, but for children in general. Almost as if they were born to raise children or something like this. Some people were just not born for it. They're not cut out for it. They don't feel like it's for them or whatever, right? But there's nothing wrong with that. But if your emotional programming or conditioning or whatever says otherwise, if that allows you to feel this sense of responsibility to your children, then you may view someone who doesn't feel that same sense of responsibility as bad or even evil sometimes, right? But to understand responsibility will dissolve this entire issue, that there's a choice here, a conscious choice. But I've met people that complain about the children that they have, right? Children are a blessing, right? But I've met people who complain about the children that they have as if the children are simply an obligation. They see the child as simply a legal obligation that they now must be responsible for all of the externals of the child, the food, the clothes, the diapers, the schooling, all of this, right? A place to sleep, a bed, a room, toys, everything, right? Some people do, and they complain about the child. They may even complain about the child in front of the child. Talk about the child as if the child is not even there, not even present. As if because the child is a child, it is not able to comprehend anything about life, right? As if there is an age restriction on social intelligence like this. It's unfortunate to complain about a responsibility that you have agreed to, that you have made a decision, made a choice to do. Why would a person make a choice that forces them to constantly complain and feel a victim? And nobody likes to admit this and to face this victim that they sometimes house within themselves. Why? Because this victim is hideous. If you were to become consciously aware of this victim mentality, if you were a person who had it, it would perhaps frighten you or enrage you. It would have a very ugly face, right? You would want to dissolve this character within yourself the moment you laid eyes on it. You would want to kill it After all, that's all that the victim is good for. You see it in movies. The victim is the one who gets killed. That's what the victim is good for, and that's exactly what you would want to do upon confronting the victim that may live inside you or someone else that you know. Even perhaps it's not always a victim. It doesn't always take the form as a victim. It's a tormentor. It's an accuser. It's a gossiper, right? It's very judgmental. It wants to judge everyone to find some sort of moral superiority, some grounds for moral superiority, right? To relinquish this responsibility, to not play this game anymore, is an amazing experience. Is something to think about, something to experiment with, and perhaps open yourself up to new horizons, right? Because many adults that you have come across, they only appear to be adults, but lacking an understanding of choice and responsibility makes them very much childlike in this respect. You see, dependent on others. They do not understand this sense of responsibility, this idea that we are all born with the same choice and the same responsibility. It's very hard to put a finger on exactly what that choice is and what that responsibility is. It's sometimes easier to describe what it is not in order to learn more about what it is. But one of the simplest ways that you could describe this is by saying that the only choice that you have and the only responsibility that you have is to the present moment. The only choice that you can make will be the choice that is made right now. You can't make a choice in the future, right? And the choices in your past that you made no longer truly exist. Sure, you house the experience within yourself, but how you interpret that experience is totally up to you. That's your choice, right? You know? So the only real responsibility that you have every moment is the moment that you're in. And the only choice you can make is the choice that you're making right now. And if you can focus in on this, your own inner choice, your own inner responsibility, your own inner responsibility over your emotional well-being, your own mental health, your own learning, your own conditioning, your own programming, all of this. This will free so much of this computing energy, this lag that so many people experience that could be showcased or expressed or viewed as procrastination, laziness, a lack of motivation and inspiration. It's all because of this misunderstanding of responsibility and choice, that you have a choice in every moment, that you're continuously making a choice in every moment, agreeing to assume responsibility for many things. And while it may be impossible for you to totally get rid of your sense of choice, your sense of responsibility, it is very possible to limit your sense of choice and responsibility to only where it matters, to only where it counts, you see. And when raising children, this is one of the main and most important aspects of raising children, is to allow the child to learn, allow the child to experience, and simply guide the child, right? And allow the child to know that they are 100% responsible for their emotions, right? For the way that they respond to things. Right? If they choose to be angry or upset, that's on them, but it doesn't have to affect you as a parent. Or if a parent is upset or a sibling gets upset often, the other sibling can know this sort of thing. This is on them. You don't have to become upset and dwell on it and become this victim, right? Anyway, I don't want to ramble on too much longer. The video is almost 20 minutes long. So until next time, I hope you continue to free your mind.